Ohio. Pskov, the city in Russia, the administrative center of the Pskov region, in the Northwestern Federal District, is the city of regional subordination. The city of Pskov in the status of the city district forms the independent municipal unit. It is located on the river Great at its merge to the Pskova River. The population minus 209,426 people. 2021. Pskov, one of the most ancient cities of Russia, is for the first time mentioned in the Lavrentyevsky Chronicle under 903. In 1348-1510, the capital of the independent Pskov Republic. In 1510 the city was a part of the Russian centralized state. Before the beginning of the 18th century, Pskov was one of the largest cities of Russia and Europe, the most important defensive and shopping center of the country. The Pskov fortress consisted of 5 surf rings, 3 of which are kept to this day. That did Pskov almost unapproachable. Throughout all the centuries-old history, Pskov became the center of conducting large fighting more than once, but was taken only once, apart from occupation during both world wars. After the basis of St. Petersburg, Pskov lost the dominant position at the western boundaries of the country, and after following the results of Northern War of Border were displaced far on the west and to the Russian Empire Riga and Revel. Nowadays Tallinn. Value of Pskov departed as trade and defensive point finally fell. During the Great Patriotic War the city was occupied 3 years by Germany. 3.5 thousand civilians during this time died. In December 2009 to Pskov the rank City of Military Glory is given. Pskov, the important tourist center of the Pskov region and the northwest of Russia. Monuments of ancient Pskov are included in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List. Trinity Cathedral, the Pskov Fortress, Mirsky Monastery, Pogankin Chambers, a number of ancient churches of Pskov are included into the list of cultural heritage of the Russian Federation. The city is also the large transport hub. It is located on crossing of the railroads and large highways. The network of intracity buses is developed. Etymology. The name of the city is connected with Chudronomy, the Pskova River. There are different versions of origin of the name of the city and river. It agrees one of them, Slavic origin, the name Pskov. Pskov, comes from the Old Russian word place, a part of the river between 2 bends, or from the word sand. According to other version, the Baltic Finnish origin, the name comes from the word Pskova. Onlivski. Pikva. In Estonian. Meaning resinous water, and reflects polyethnicity of the early population of the city. Other interpretation of a gadronym, splash, gloss, the fish river, sand. By archaeologists it is established that in Pskov the 10-11th centuries there lived ancestors of Slavs, the Pskov-Krivichi, representatives of the Baltic Finnish, Baltsky and Scandinavian tribes. Often associate the term ironmongers with residents of Pskov and Pskovshchina. A most widespread devotion according to which there was a gradual transition from the word Pskov to the name ironmonger by replacement of separate sounds and parts of a word, in many respects thanks to specifics of the Pskov dialects is considered. And as a result there could be the return word formation. Pskovsky _ ironmonger. According to other version, the city since ancient times was famous for the forge trade, and, on a legend, the Tsar Piatai called residents of Pskov ironmongers, after could not unbend the bracket shaped by local smiths. And it easily unbent usual horseshoes. Exactly here in Pskov, the all-night-long ironmonger's forged bracket song was born. History. The age of Pskov is precisely unknown. Archaeological researches near Pskova's mouth in the northernmost tip of Kremlin showed that this territory was populated 200 years ago. The third quarter of the millennium of our era dates at the sites of the ancient settlement, the settlement of the culture of long barrows, left by immigrants from the south. In the 7th and 9th centuries, at the site of the Pskov ancient settlement, there was related to carriers of Ryugeski culture, a settlement of Pskov in which died in the fire of the beginning of the 860th years. On shape of material culture Pskovin and Izborsk contact antiquities of Entre Rios of the lower Vistula and Oder. The end of the 9th century, the beginning of the 11th century dates on the Pskov ancient settlement. The building period provided by wood and shrubney constructions with deal floors on logs and a furnace in a corner. The square of the settlement of Pskov of GI to the middle of the 10th century reached 15 hectares, and the population increased by 5-7 times. Finds this period demonstrate emergence in the city of immigrants, the Scandinavian origin. 8 chamber burials of the Starovoznensky necropolis found in the southern part of the roundabout city. The 10th centuries are dated back to the second half. The deputy buried in chamber burial No. 6 on the Podjesky 12 excavation was buried semi-sitting in chair, with painted details till 967. Official foundation date of Pskov is considered to be 903, year of the first mention of the city in the chronicle. On a legend, when the Princess Olga stood on the coast grate, it was vision. 3 beams proceeding from the sky met on the opposite coast. On this place the princess also enjoined to build cathedral in honor of the Holy Trinity, and around the hill is big, Nice also in all abundance. 10 / the 13th century. Till the 12th century Pskov was a part of Kievan Rus. After declaration in 1136 of the Novgorod feudal republic, the city passed under the power of Novgorod. Novgorod with Pskov had common military interests. Several times Novorodians and residents of Pskov had to defend from military campaigns of the Polotsk Principality and from attack from the neighboring Baltic tribes. In 1240 Pskov was surrounded by troops of the Teutonic Order. When Germans were already going to raise a siege and to depart, the Boyar Verdilo secretly opened at night city gate, expecting to seize by means of the German feudal lords power in Pskov. 1.5 years Pskov was in occupation of an award. Only in 1242 the city was freed by Alexander Nevsky's army. The permanent danger threatening to Pskov from the west forced to strengthen and develop fortress. The territory of the Kremlin was considerably expanded during government of the Prince Dovment. It is possible that at this time wooden walls began to replace stone. The stone wall passing from Pskova's coast to the coast grate was on his order constructed. Capital of the Vetch Republic. In the 12th, 13th centuries the cities of Narva and Yuriev, nowadays Tartu, Riga, Polotsk, Smolensk and to a lesser extent Novgorod were the main trading partners of Pskov. The Pskov lands provided the city with bread and other products, therefore Pskov economically did not depend on Novgorod in any way. They were connected only by the common military interests. However, after the battle on the ice, their general enemy, the Teutonic Order, did not constitute more danger to Novgorod. Novgorodians needed to combat only Swedes, and Pskov won reflected approach of the Livonian Award. Thus, military communications of Pskov and Novgorod were destroyed. By this time in Pskov there was the nobility, quite numerous and strong, seeking to take all power on the Pskov earth in hand. Actually, Pskov became independent at the end of the 13th century, at the Prince-Dovment. In 1348, the Bolotovsky Agreement, under which the Novgorod Republic recognized independence of the Pskov Republic of the Novgorod Posadnik, was signed. Also, the deputy of the Lord began to get out of residence of Pskov. In 1397, the Popular Assembly, the supreme body of legislature of the Pskov Republic, accepted the first edition of the Pskov Judgment Diploma, the Code of Laws. By the end of the 15th century, the population of Pskov made more than 30,000 people. The most part of urban population was made by handicraftsmen and dealers. The craft in Pskov was less developed than in Novgorod, but also there were many skillful masters. Smiths, bricklayers, skinners, potters, jewelers. Merchants were the main owners of the Pskov trade. The Pskov merchants did business the cities of Baltics and Lithuania, and also the Russian cities. In the 15th century, commercial relations of Pskov with Moscow were strengthened. Residents of Pskov sold linen, leather, fish, honey, wax, furs, and bought salt, cloth, iron, metalwares and other goods. Development of trade in the Pskov earth led to creation of own monetary system. Since 1425, residents of Pskov began to mint the coin from high standard silver and minted it till 1510. As a part of the uniform Russian state. Since 1461, the power in Pskov concentrated in hands of the Moscow deputies. Their powers grew every year. Since 1467 they acquired the right to send the managers to all Pskov suburbs, their judicial powers extended. In 1480 Pskov stood at a siege Lebanese led by Bernhard von der Borkum. In 1483, in defiance of the legislative rights of Évêque, the Prince Yaroslav Obolensky changed a number of the Pskov laws that provoked a long revolt of residents of Pskov. By the end of the beginning of the 16th century, Pskov almost completely lost the independence. In 1502, Pskov successfully reflected a city siege the Livonian master Walter von Plettenberg. In 1509, to Pskov, the Prince Ivan Mikhailovich Rykny-Obolensky was appointed the deputy. He did not recognize the Pskov laws, did not take the oath to Évêque. He established and collected taxes on the population, judged residents of Pskov without participation of representatives of Évêque. Ambassadors with complaints to the new deputy were sent to Vasily III. The Grand Duke suggested all dissatisfied to go with the petitions. Complaints to Novgorod. On January 6, 1510, the Pskov Posadnik and boyars were invited in faceted chamber of the Novgorod Kremlin. Vasily III demanded destruction of the Pskov Vek and a position of Posadnik and distribution on the Pskov earth of the Moscow management system. It meant complete liquidation of the Pskov feudal republic and accession of the Pskov earth to Moscow. The Posadnik and boyars who were brought together in the Novgorod faceted chamber were forced to accept the requirement of the Moscow sovereign. In the morning on January 13, 1510, 1719 from creation of the world, the Pskov Vech was convened last time. On behalf of Evgeny Posadnik transferred to Vasily Tretyaku Dalmatov's ambassador the consent of residents of Pskov to obey to Moscow. The Vetch bell was right there removed. It was declared liquidation of the Pskov feudal republic and about an entrance of its territory to the structure of the Russian state. After accession to the Moscow Russia, Pskov continued to remain the large shopping and craft center of the Russian state. In Pskov various crafts were developed. Metalworking, woodworking, processing of vegetable and animal raw materials, potters and construction crafts. In the middle of the 16th century in Pskov in 40 malls there were 1,700 trade rooms. Twice a year, in January and in May, in Pskov there took place large fairs. At a winter fair, in addition to other goods, large consignments of the wood and rice snituk, on spring hemp, fat, yaft were sold. Pskov was an important transit point. Through it abroad exported linen, canvas, leather and cloth, and imported metals and industrial products. In 1565, when the Tsar Ivan the Terrible divided the Russian state into Oprichnina and Azemshchina, the city was a part of the last. Till 1581, fighting of the Livonian War avoided Pskov. After Ivan the Terrible refused to sign the peace treaty offered by Stefan Batory, under which the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth Livonia and the west of Russia with the cities of Novgorod, Pskov and Smolensk departed, the Polish king decided to take Pskov. Thereby he expected to force Ivan IV's government to agree on severe conditions of the world. On August 26, troops Stefana Batorija approached Pskov and were located to the south from the city. Separate groups occupied suburban monasteries. As always, before receipt of the enemy, residents of Pskov burned the posad. The population of the posad and peasants of neighboring villages took cover behind fortifications of Pskov. Expecting storm from the south, residents of Pskov constructed one more wooden wall parallel to stone along the southern wall of the roundabout city. Between these walls they dug out a ditch. The siege of Pskov proceeded half a year. But neither general storm on September 8, nor 30 more attacks, nor underminings under fortifications, nor a 6-month siege broke defenders of the city. As a result, Batory raised a siege and agreed to peace talks. In 1615, Pskov was besieged by Swedes. Gustav Adolphus's troops approached fortress from the north. Despite powerful shelling of the city, residents of Pskov beat off fierce storm of Swedes. Since the 16th century in Pskov, social contradictions between peasants and feudal lords, citizens and feudal lords began to accrue. Escalation of the social conflicts was also promoted by growth of the national taxes. During the period from 1606 to 1611 in Pskov, revolts broke out. In 1650 in Pskov the new large revolt broke out. The obligation of Russia was obeyed because following the results of the Russian-Swedish War 1614-1617 to sell to Sweden 12,000 quarters of bread at the prices of the Pskov grain market. Sale to a large consignment of bread led to increase in prices for bread twice and was the direct cause of the beginning of a revolt. Throughout the 15th, 16th centuries the fortress of Pskov continued to become stronger. Wooden walls of the roundabout city were replaced by stone. The wall of Krom was completed to Pskov's mouth. In Pskov in two places, at the Gremyuchi mountain and at Krom the Vodobeshny gate representing the wooden lattices upholstered with iron closing in wartime an entrance to the river were constructed. In the Russian Empire, Last time Pskov played an important role in the military history of pre-revolutionary Russia at the beginning of the 18th century in the years of Northern War. In the winter 1700-1701 Russian shells broken near Narva were allocated to Pskov. Later there also again created troops were directed. For a while Pskov became the center of location of the operating Russian army. After defeat near Narva the danger because it was possible to expect approach of Swedes to the east towards Moscow through Pskov began to threaten Pskov. By order of Peter I in the Pskov fortress defensive works by the last word of military art of the time were constructed. The earth bastions and semi-bastions connected by shaft. Surrounded with new powerful strengthenings, supplied with the artillery, latest to those years, Pskov became the terrible fortress capable to reflect the enemy. However, fighting then did not begin. The Swedish king directed the troops to the west against Poland and Saxony. The troops billeted in Pskov took the offensive. After Northern War Pskov stopped being the important large shopping and defensive center of the country. Following the results of War of Border departed far on the west, and the need in powerful fortress on Great disappeared. Having received an exit to the Baltic Sea, Piat I mortgaged Street. Petersburg in the delta of Neva, also Russia received the large seaside cities of Riga and Revel where all foreign trade was displaced. Pskov became the country town. According to the data collected in 1782 Catherine II Drive in it there were 50 stone and 1614 wooden houses, 12 stone and 200 wooden benches, grain and salt warehouses. Factories were absent. Turnover of trade in the wood, flax, hemp and fish made more than 300,000 rubles, and store trade, to 200,000 rubles. From the beginning of Patriotic War of 1812 the Russian generals considered option of offensive of army of Napoleon at St. Petersburg. In that case the Pskov province would get to the sphere of military operations. In this connection here a number of preparatory measures was performed. There was forming of a reserve for guards regiments, also warehouses were created hospital. However, a number of military progress of the Russian army prevented invasion of the French into Pskov. Within the 19th century the role of Pskov as memorial city grew. Within the 19th century Pskov considerably grew, became stone buildings more. At the beginning of the century generally one story, in 100 years it already more than half was 2- and 3-storied. An originality the appearance was given numerous, over 50 churches, chapels and monasteries, medieval civil stone buildings, the ancient decayed fortifications. In the 19th century bigger development in Pskov was gained by healthcare and education. Since 1838 the Pskovskaya Gubernskaya Vedomosti newspaper began to appear. Construction of the railroad in 1859 promoted economic recovery and expansion of trade. By 1881 in the city the water supply system opened. Pskov was the 19th century the small, quiet, green town in which life flowed measuredly and quietly, quickening in days of fairs, markets, festivities, the church courses, secular and religious holidays. Plan of Provincial Pskov of 1913. From March to June 1905.1. Ulyanov. Lenin. Lived in Pskov. In the agrarian Pskov province with the underdeveloped industry, too few working class prior to January events of 1905 there were almost no strikes, demonstrations or large anti-government protests. The main revolutionary force of Pskov were the railroad workers, who organized a number of strikes. In 1904 in the city the first power plant was constructed. In 1912 streetcar service opened. In the summer of 1914 war rushed into measured labor life of the Pskov province. In 1915 the front line was spaced from Pskov in only 250, 300 km. In the city martial law was imposed. In Pskov front reserve formations, hospital and rear military services were placed. The city accepted tens of thousands of wounded, prisoners of war and refugees. By the end of 1917 very sharply there was a food problem. In the city there was catastrophically not enough bread. On March 2, 1917 in the car of the imperial train at the station Pskov the Emperor Nicholas II abdicated. The building of the railway station is opened in 1863. Plavichi Bridge through Great at the end of the 19th century. The Pskov tram, which is started up in 1912 on Sovietskaya Street. Nowadays Oktyarsky Avenue. Alexander Nevsky's temple is consecrated in 1908. Soviet period. On October 26. On November 1917 the Pskov Council of Working and Soldiers Deputies declared the establishment in Pskov of the Soviet power. Since October 28. On November 1 on November 14. 1917 in the city heavy fighting between Bolsheviks and forces supporting provisional government and the Soviet power finally affirmed as Pskov was conducted. From February 25 to November 25, 1918 Pskov was occupied by the German troops. From May 25 to August 26, 1919 Pskov was captured once again, now by the Estonian National Parts and S.N. Bulik Balakovich's groups. Great Patriotic War. On June 22, 1941 residents of Pskov, as well as the whole country, were shocked by the message about the beginning of war with Germany. But in the first days people did not obtain reliable information, therefore believed that the enemy will be stopped and broken at the western border. However, in the very first days in Pskov there arrived refugees from Belarus and the Baltics. Then the real situation at the front at the beginning of war became clear. Since July 2 Pskov began to be exposed to bombings. In the first day of bombings evacuation began. First of all, money, archives, the industrial equipment were exported from the city, and with approach of the front evacuation of civilians began. In the night of July 8 Germans managed to break through resistance of the Soviet tank divisions and to break to the outskirts of Pskov around crosses. Almost for a day the blown up bridges through the river Great detained invaders. On July 9 Pskov was captured by In the city the severe occupational mode was set. Citizens were obliged to live under the German laws now. The obligatory labor duty for all persons from 18 to 45 years, which was extended further to those to whom it was performed 15, was entered, and prolonged up to 65 years for men and up to 45 years for women. The working day lasted 16 hours. Many from remained in the occupied territory worked at power plant, on the railroad, peatery and skinnery, being for the slightest fault punished with birches. During an initial stage of occupation the German administration sought to keep collective labor organization that gave the chance centrally to receive agricultural products. but encountered persistent resistance in the form of sabotage, absence from work, damage of cars. Economic robbery was followed by accomplishment of the master plan, Ost, according to which a part of civilians was exposed to destruction, and a part to resettlement to Siberia. In Crosses, the concentration camp in which 65,000 people were tortured to death was created. In the first months of occupation, small guerrilla groups were organized. In 1942 there was active forming of the guerrilla movement, separate small guerrilla groups connected. Guerrillas made a big contribution to a general victory. Destroyed considerable number of manpower and the opponent's technicians, turned the occupied territory into a zone of permanent danger. Installed uncertainty and fear in the German soldiers and officers. After release on July 21, 1944, Ostrova appeared a possibility of an environment of group of Wehrmacht near Pskov. Panic retreat of the German troops began, as created favorable conditions for approach of troops of the 42nd Army of the 3rd Baltic Front. The main blow to Pskov was struck by the 128th and 376th Rifle Divisions with the given connections and parts. On July 22, the 376th Division began promotion to Pskov, having bypassed Volina Gora, near the village of Volino, and near the settlement of Piskovici left great to the river. On July 23, Pskov was freed. In the morning, the 376th Division forced the river near the Pskov Kremlin and released the western part of the city, and the 128th Division exempted its center and east part, from the Kremlin to Chereki. Forcing of the river grade created conditions for release of Alichi and further promotion on the highway Pskov-Riga. During fascist occupation in Pskov, all industrial enterprises were destroyed, the most part of civil constructions is destroyed, all tram lines are lost, the Pskov museums are plundered. After the Great Patriotic War. In the first year after release, Pskov was restored by forces generally only of enthusiasts, as because of the continuing war money was not allocated. In 1945 Pskov was included in number 15 of the most ancient cities which were subject to priority restoration that increased public financing of restoration of the enterprises, housing stock, historical and cultural monuments. Pskov quickly rose from ruins. By 1950 the main stage of recovery work was completed. The new enterprises, apartment houses and schools were constructed. Since the end of the 1950th years, Pskov began to develop as the large industrial center. In the city a number of high-technology productions got better. The products of the Pskov plants were delivered abroad. On September 26, 1958 the first Birkbark manuscript dated by A. Zalizniak for 1180-1200 was found in Pskov. Modern period. With the collapse of the USSR, a large number of the plants was closed, the city economy fell into decay. At the same time, at a turn of the 20th and 21st centuries, the Pskov temples and churches began to revive, many of which were closed in days of the Soviet power. Physiographic characteristic. Pskov is located in the west of the European part of Russia, on the place of falling of the Pskovi River into river. Great and in 16 came from the place of confluence of river. Great to Lake Pskov. The city is in the center of Pskov lowland. The square of the city makes 95.6 km. City extent from the north on the south of 9.2 km, and from the west on the east of 10 km. Average height above sea level 46.5 m. Pskov is located on both river banks, great which the rivers of Pskov within the city feed, Cheryak, Miraz and Promeshets. Also in the city and vicinities there are several small superficial water currents. Nalevka and Ramonka rivers stream Kolakonachi. Length of all water currents of Pskov is about 35 km. Through Great into Pskov 12 bridges are thrown, including pedestrian and railway. Ecological situation. Emissions from motor transport reach 83% of total emissions of stationary and mobile sources. The amount of emissions of pollutants in the atmosphere from stationary sources in 2007 was 16.5 thousand tons, including 7.1 thousand tons. 43.2%. Of carbon dioxide, 2.6 thousand tons. 15.8%. Of solid substances. The largest source of air pollution in Pskov and Elskovskaya poultry farm. It has thrown out pollutants of 1,365.92 t. And Mount Pskov, the Pskov thermal networks. 478.12 t. For all rivers flowing across the territory of the Pskov region including Pskov, the increased concentration in water of iron of the general ions of copper, the hardly oxidized organic compounds are characteristic. Air pollution in Pskov is characterized by the following indicators. Average in a year and maximum single concentration of dioxide of sulfur is lower than 1 maximum allowable concentration. Concentration of dioxide of nitrogen, average in a year, makes 1.5 maximum allowable concentrations, the maximum single minus 3. 4 maximum allowable concentrations. Average in a year and maximum single concentration of carbon dioxide is lower than 1 maximum allowable concentration. Concentration of suspended substances, average in a year, is lower than 1 maximum allowable concentration, the maximum single concentration made 2.2 maximum allowable concentrations. Extent of air pollution in general approximately low is also determined by Pskov by I as a value equals to 81. Since the end of the 1990th years the Clear Water project, which is officially registered by United Russia in 2006, is implemented. Improvement of quality of drinking water is provided to be performed. Gradual refusal of a superficial water intake from the river grate and transition to extraction of water from underground sources. However, use of an underground water intake leads to a zasorimised of the hot water supply, up to complete impassability. In those objects where this water arrives in connection with its increased rigidity. Vegetation. In Pskov, high extent of gardening is a lot of planted trees and shrubs, streets and yards. The total area of parks and squares of Pskov is more than 40 hectares. In the city in a large number birches, a poplar, willows, maples and lindens are provided. Pskov is surrounded with the coniferous and mixed woods. Climate. Climate of Pskov transitional from moderately sea to moderately continental, with soft winter and in the warm summer. Pskov drops out in the summer and more in the early fall. July 2010 was recognized the hottest for all history of meteorological observations in Pskov. Average temperature of month was plus 23.2 degrees. Average annual speed of wind minus 2.4 m/s. Average annual temperature, plus 5.9 C. Average annual humidity of air -80%. Time zone. Pskov is in hour zone Moscow time. Moscow time. Shift of the applied time concerning UTS is +3:00. According to the applied time and geographical longitude, average solar midday in Pskov comes at 13:07. Territorial division. Pskov consists of 4 historically developed parts. The Pskov Kremlin, including Dovmin's town, and the center of Pskov in general, including the average city and the roundabout city of the historic center. Zapskovi, to the north behind the Pskova River. Zavlichi, to the west beyond Velikaya River. And Zavokali, to the south and the southeast from the downtown. It is also separately possible to allocate crosses. In the extreme southeast, Lyubiatovo. In the northeast, Lopatino. In the extreme south, to the north from the village of Cheryok, sometimes in honor of the last and call actually the region of Lopatino. Are generally Pskov Kirpich. Khoritovo. In the southeast Zavolichia. Eagle Rugs, Shibanovo and Buturka. In the south Zavolichia. Ovsishin Snaitnaya Gor. In the west Pskovia. From 1977 to 1988, Pskov was divided into 2 urban areas. Lenin included the central part of the city, Zavokali and Zapskovi to the east of Truda Street, and Pushkin, Zavlichi and Zapskovi to the west of Truda Street. District division was abolished in October 1988. Till odd years, the city of Pskov was divided into 17 municipal enterprises of managements of the residential districts which had name numerals. Nantav from 1 to 17. Their borders in some cases covered different historic districts. Amarno 4, 6, 7 include quarters both the center and Zavochalia. Total length of borders of the city is 50 km. Regional administration. Pskov is the administrative center of the Pskov region. In the city there are all public authorities of the Pskov region. Administration of the Pskov region, the Pskov Regional Assembly of Deputies. The government in the area is performed on the basis of separation of the authorities into legislative and executive. The governor of the region and the governing bodies formed by him make the system of executive power. Executive body of the government of the Pskov region is the administration of the Pskov region, which since September 17, 2018 is headed by the governor Mikhail Yurevich Vedornikov. It is chosen on September 9, 2018, during the period from October 12, 2017 to September 17, 2018 temporarily fulfilled the governor's duties. Representative and Legislative Authority. The Pskov Regional Assembly of Deputies, which part 44 deputies are, is permanent. City authorities. Two-headed management model works with the city from the second half of the odd years. Head of administration of the city of Pskov. So-called city manager. And mayor. Chairman of city council. Is management official of municipal unit. City administration. Powers according to the solution of questions of local value and also separate state powers according to federal laws, laws of the Pskov region and this charter are performed by city administration of Pskov. The structure of city administration approved by City Council on submission of Chapter 2 Structure of City Administration. Enter. Head of Administration of the City. Deputy Heads of Administration of the City. Structural Divisions of City Administration. Administration Staff of the City. Bodies of City Administration. Pskov City Council. The head of administration of the city of Pskov since fall of 2021 is Yolkin Boris Andreevich. On November 26 it is chosen a ballot city council. On September 28 it was appointed performing powers of the head of administration of the city, actually fulfilled duties since July 30. A predecessor from 2017 to 2021 was Pskov Alexander Nikolaevich. Pskov City Council. The system of local government in Pskov form representative body of local government, the Pskov City Council, the management official, the mayor of Pskov. After early termination of powers of Ivan Nikolaevich Sitsersky on May 23, 2019, the mayor performing powers there was Elena Alexandrovna Polonskaya elected the mayor on November 13. The mayor is elected deputies to the sessions of the Pskov City Council from the structure and is a management official of the city of Pskov. It performs powers of the chairman of the Pskov City Council. The mayor is elected to a term of office equal to a term of office of the Pskov City Council. 5 years. Population. Pskov, the biggest city of the Pskov region. For January 1, 2021 on population the city was in the 95th place from 1116 cities of the Russian Federation. In the 15th century Pskov was the second largest city of Russia after Moscow. Stefan Batory's secretary during a siege of Pskov troops of this Polish king wrote down in the diary. We admire Pskov. My God, what beautiful city, precisely Paris. Help us, my God, to cope with it. After the basis of St. Petersburg, which became the most important economic center of Russia, Pskov lost the power. After expansion of borders on the west, Pskov finally lost a role of the defense and border center. These changes affected dynamics of growth of population. During the Great Patriotic War in Pskov more than 4,000 locals died. With liberation of Pskov in July 1944 from 62,000 of the civilian population in the city there were only 143 inhabitants. Then restoration and the subsequent steady growth of population of the city up to the middle of the 1990s years began. Ratio of men and women. On a population census of 2010. Only 203.3 thousand people of 100.00% of the man of 91.7 thousand people of 45.11% of Zinjani, of 1,000 people of 54. 89%. In Pskov, as well as in other cities of the western and central Russia, the greatest distribution among dogmas was gained by orthodoxy. On a legend, Pskov was founded by Saint Olga on the place where three beams met. There and the first wooden Holy Trinity Cathedral was built. Around it there was a city of Pskov. In process of growth of the city also new Orthodox churches were under construction. The church architecture of ancient Pskov remained and up to now. Now in Pskov 44 Orthodox churches, from them 5 do not work. The most ancient temple of Pskov, Spasopreobrazhensky, was built in the 11th-12th century. In Pskov 2 men's and 1 convent. The Mirsky Monastery, the Snetogorsky Monastery, Street. Jean the Baptist Monastery. City administrative center of the Pskov and Veliki Luki Diocese of Russian Orthodox Church. In addition to Orthodox receipts of the Moscow Patriarchy, in the city there is an old belief community of the Pomer Church. It possesses Nikola's Church from the stone fencing. In Pskov there is also 1 Catholic church, a Church of the Blessed Trinity, and 1 Protestant church, Church of Evangelical Baptist Christians. The Pskov Catholic community was formed in the 19th century, then the first Catholic temple was built. The building reached our days, but underwent strong changes. Now there is an educational and course plant. Economy. The amount of self-produced shipped goods in the processing productions of 2011 was 14.15 billion rubles. In 2010, 12.83. In 2010, among these productions the largest specific weight belonged to production of electric equipment, electronic and optical equipment minus 4.57 billion rubles. To production of machines and the equipment minus 1.63 billion rubles. To production of foodstuff minus 2.98 billion rubles. To tailoring minus 0.94 billion rubles. Contact welding by continuous melting of a pipe of the gas pipeline with a diameter of 1420 Pskov at the Tesla plant. Pskov Elektrosvar. Industry. NLSNPP Street, production of mobile and stationary Relsosvarokny complexes, machining of details. NL's Polyplast, production of the galvanic equipment. NL's Alimentum, production of cooling machineries, thermal pumps, heat exchangers. Pskov Electromachine Building Plant, production of electrical machines of direct and alternating current. Pskov Plant of Mechanical Drives, production of the driving equipment and the motor reducers of various profile. NL's Energia, production of voltage stabilizers. Zesk Elektrotexy Pskov Plant, production of electrotechnical equipment 0. 435K. Kont, Backed Co, Crew, Enku. NV, the low voltage equipment and consumer goods. Ramjets, electric radiators, electroconvectors. And also T10, the equipment for superficial installation. His Toklet plant specializes in production of castings from the carbonaceous and alloyed stali, gray and special chugan by method of exact casting. Pskov Cable, production of cable products. Revenue from sales net, 2011, 3. 824 billion rubles. Pskov War. Pskov Elektroarmatura. Safety locks. Control units of different function, blocks assembly relays and safety locks. Switches and switches, relay. Schneekowy pairs for automatic molding machines. Pskov Plant of Automatic Telephone Exchanges, T, production of automatic telephone exchanges. Pskov Plant of the equipment of a long-distance communication, production of the equipment of a long-distance communication. Pskov plant of radio components Pskov specializes in production of both the special electronic equipment and electronic components civil and military. An else plant of rubber footwear Pskov polymer production of rubber footwear. Sebi-1 plant, all types of concrete goods. Pskov brickworks. Zest United Bakers, Pskov, before Zest Lubiatovo, production of crackers and dry breakfasts. Zest Pskovsky Libokombinat, production bakery and confectionery. Anel Pskov flour mill, a wide range of products of agriculture and the grain processing industry. Pskov garment factory Slavyanka, tailoring under the name of Truber. Pskov production of a sanitary armature. Pskov production of alcoholic products, retail chain stores, B, Imperial hypermarket. NL Pskov production of meat products. NL Pskov Tekets, production of the cryogenic equipment and technical/industrial gases. NL Pskov Jokable, production of the geophysical cargo bearing armored and special cables. Pskov production of logging elevators. NL Stiopli Dom, production of heat-effective wall construction blocks. The plant of modern housing construction, production of heat-effective blocks. Pskov boat shipyard, production of small vessels from fiberglass. Rowing and motor boats, yachts and plavdeck. Zest Povgas market, construction, installation and capital repairs main gas and oil pipelines. NL Sox Holding, production of construction metalwork and reservoirs of various industrial function. NL Spico, production of the equipment for processing of biowaste in pellets, briquettes, wood flour. NL Pskov boiler plant, production of boilers for heating, industrial and heating and modular boiler houses. Perko, production of systems and the equipment of security. NL Stanevsky, production and distribution of paper for filters of cigarettes in the tobacco industry. Printing activity and provision of services in this area. NL Stel, production of boats Pieki, Rybov, the rafts, aeroboats and boat accessories which are released under the Stel trademark. Transport. At residence of Pskov behind Clear Advantage Motor. Personal. And bus transport. The last enjoys the greatest popularity actually due to the lack of an alternative to the section, city transport. Extremely high automobilization and development of city bus infrastructure. In the region bus traffic is developed poorly. Are on some of the leading positions on Russia. Motor transport. Through Pskov the highways K, Pskov-Stovslates and A. Pskov is Borsk, border with Estonia, run. From the side of the border there is a lot of transit transport. In 2007 the first stage of a northern round, the bypass road around Pskov. Accounting number -K. Connected route P with highway K was open. In September 2016 construction of the second turn which should connect already constructed part of the bypass road with the highway A began. City transport. The only type of city transport bus. The network of city buses in Pskov is well developed. It contains 34 routes. As of 2018. The journey price since January 24, 2022 is 31 rubles. From January 1912 to July 1941 in Pskov the electric tram worked. After war streetcar service was not restored. In the second half of the 1970th design of trolleybus lines was conducted, but this project was not implemented. Water transport. Pskov in the Middle Ages got in the way from the Varangian and Greeks. At the same time the city had water communication with the cities of Tartu, Tallinn, Stockholm and others. After accession of Pskov to the Moscow Principality and abolition of the Pskov Republic, the city lost the independence that caused weakening of commercial relations with the cities of Western Europe. After construction by Peter I. Street, Petersburg all goods turnover of Russia of the Baltic direction was redirected to the basin of Neva. In the 1940th years after accession of the Baltic republics to the USSR, the city of Pskov finally lost the value as port, and as a result of construction on the river Narva in the 1968 years of a dam of the Narva hydroelectric power station, passage of the vessels from Lake Chudskoye to the Baltic Sea was completely blocked. In 1970-1980 the permanent passenger traffic between Pskov and Tartu performed by motor ships on underwater wings, rocket, worked. On great deboating ships Pskov and Petrol ply. Railway transport. Within the city there are stations: October Railway, Pskov Passenger, Pskov Commodity, Pskov IE, Pskov Tourist, Cheryok, Birch, Lyubyatovo, Regimental. At the end of the beginning of the 20th century, Pskov becomes the large railway junction where the following roads are crossed. Peterburgo-Varshovsky Railway. It is constructed in 1852-1862. Since 1907 under the authority of Northwest Railway. The first train from St. Petersburg came to Pskov 10 on February 22, 1859. Pskovo-Rissky Railway with a branch to Derpt, Tartu. It is constructed in 1886-1888. Extent is 286 versts. Since 1907 under the authority of Northwest Railway. To Bologoyskov Railway. The Bologoy-Villiers Staraya Russa line Pskov. It is expensive, 335 versts long. It was constructed in 1894-1897. Society of the Moskovsko-Vindava-Rybinsko Railroad, with an exit to Riga. Pskov-Gdav-Novorokhodnaya Road. It is constructed in 1915-1916. Society of the Moskovsko-Vindava-Rybinsko Railroad, for needs of the front. It is destroyed in days of the Great Patriotic War. The site Pskov-Gdav is not restored. Pskov. Werches. Sacred Mountains, Apotka, Idritsa, Polotsk. 1916-1917. It is destroyed in days of the Great Patriotic War. It is not restored. In recent years, passenger train traffic in Pskov endured crisis in a type of unprofitability of this type of activity in this territory and total loss to bus business companies, owing to extreme disinterest of the authorities in development of the industry, explained with permanent lack of funds and impossibility or hardly feasibility of procedures of subsidizing. Since 2012 there is no suburban message in the western and southwest directions. Pytalovo, Skengali, Pekara. In 2015, the suburban message on the station Pskov passenger for some time was interrupted at all. Since 2015, running through Pskov of the international long-distance trains to Riga and Vilnius stopped. These trains are transferred to the Vitebsk course. In 2015-2018 there was no regular message long-distance trains with St. Petersburg. As of August 2018, the situation with railway communication in Pskov is stabilized. There is a daily message long-distance trains with Moscow, 1-2 couples of trains, and St. Petersburg, 4 couples of the train Swallow. Also there is a daily suburban message to the Bottom and Luga -1 stations. In Luga change on the approved electric train to St. Petersburg is possible. The airport in 2018. In Pskov there is an international airport Pskov. In different years flights were carried out to Moscow and St. Petersburg. Air traffic with the capital was resumed in May 2007 after a 15-year break within the regional target program for air traffic development. The Pskovavia airline resumed air traffic along a route Pskov-Moscow, Domodedovo, Pskov. Flights at the time began to be performed on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Since August 1, 2013 the company started accomplishment of the flights en route Pskov, St. Petersburg. In 2009-2010 the Latvian airline, Air Baltic, tried to adjust air traffic between Pskov and Riga. Flights were performed twice a week, but in connection with a low passenger traffic are stopped. For the beginning of 2018 Pskovavia was in extremely difficult situation. A pre-bankruptcy state. Workers did not get paid half a year, all flights to Moscow and St. Petersburg were cancelled. For summer of 2020 flights by the Azimuth airline to Moscow, Vnukovo, and Sochi and also Rusline airline to Kaliningrad and Mineralny Vody are performed. Also Skol airline flights to Kaliningrad. Bridges. Alexander Nevsky Bridge. In an alignment of streets Anniversary and Chudsky. It is open on October 31, 1990. March 27, 1991 The decision of the Executive Committee of the City Soviet of People's Deputies to it appropriated a name of Alexander Nevsky. Olchinsky Bridge. Project of 1901. Inf. Grigory Nikiforovich Solovyev. It is solemnly mortgaged on June 14, 1909. It is consecrated and open for the movement on October 30, 1911. It is referred officially to as Olchinsky on November 9, 1911. It is blown up by Red Army men on May 25, 1919. It is restored in February 1921. The Red Army. It is renamed in February 1923. It is blown up by Red Army men on July 8, 1941. It is restored by sappers of Wehrmacht in 1942. It is blown up by Germans on July 22, 1944. It is restored on April 21, 1945. It is dismantled in 1969. The Soviet Army. 1970, reinforced concrete. Lenjaprotran's Most. Polchinsky. 50-letia October Bridge. It is open in October 1967. Riga Railway Bridge. Pskovo-Risky Railway. Solemn bookmark on September 14, 1886. 1888. Inth. D. 1. Zhirovsky S5. Herbuds. It is blown twice up in the Great Patriotic War. On July 8, 1941 the Soviet sappers, in July 1944 the receding Germans. Bridges through Pskov. Trinity Bridge. At first wooden, so-called. American, 1849. Metal, 1899. On March 20, 1902 it is nominated Troitsks. On October 12, 1925 it is renamed into Soviet. It is replaced reinforced concrete on December 28, 1950. Peshakodny Bridge in Fords at Church of the Epiphany with Pskovia. Kuznetsky Bridge. In an alignment of the Kuznetsk and industrial streets. Capital reconstruction in 1981. Peshakodny Bridge in the street. Thomas's Sunday at the Church of the Blessed Trinity. Connecting Kameny Lane in the center and Krasnogorskaya Street on Zapskovi. Inzenony Bridge. In an alignment of Inzenonaya Street. It is open in July 1978. Zhelezhnodorozhny Bridge through Pskov. Single line. Connects the railway station of the Birch to the industrial zone on Zapskovi. Peshakodny Bridge in Lyubiatovo at Nikola Chudotvorts's Church or Lyubiatovsky Church. Connects the region of Lyubiatovo. Lyubiatovskaya Street. With Sapskoviem. Novatorov Street. The bridge of the northern bypass road of Pskov. Connects the rural residential districts of Pskov. The Goat Ford on the right coast and Fox Hills on left. It is constructed by Mustu Triad No. 48, put in operation in 2007. Avtomobilny Bridge through Cherryoko. New. The automobile and pedestrian bridge through the Cherryok River. Connects Pskov. Residential district Lopatinovskov Kirpich. And the village of Cherryok of the Pskov district. Is a part of Leningradskoy Highway. MRE 95. Avtomobilny Bridge through Cherryoko. Old. The automobile bridge through the Cherryok River. Connects Pskov. Residential district Lopatinovskov Kirpich. And the village of Cherryok of the Pskov district. Is a part of Leningradskoy Highway. MRE 95. Zhelezhnodorozhny Bridge through Cherryoko. Through Murovka. Mirsky Bridge, the pedestrian bridge through Murovka. At confluence in grade. At the Mirsky Monastery. Zhelezhnodorozhny Bridge through Murovka. Other bridges. The bridge through a stream Kolokolnichi, automobile 1914 Goda Bridge of construction on Zapskovi, at the Gremiachi Tower. At confluence of a stream Kolokolnichi to the river of Pskov. The October Viaduct, the automobile and pedestrian bridge, connects Oktyarsky Avenue and Krestaskoye Highway, between the central Pskov and the residential district crosses. Under the viaduct there pass railway tracks and the road. The Krestovsky Viaduct, the road overpass of Nikolov Boris Alexandrovich, the automobile bridge on Leningradskoye Highway, MRE 95, to the north from crosses. Under the viaduct there pass railway tracks and is expensive. The industrial viaduct, the automobile bridge on Zapskovi, on Industrial Neo Street, connects the downtown to the industrial zone. The railway viaduct of Lyubyatovo, the railway viaduct in Lyubyatovo, regarding the former Eni Bryaska, through the highway, Leo Tolstoy Street. Communication. Operators of telephone and wire communication. Rostelecom, Megafon. Pskov Seats brand. Manned tanked. Internet service providers. Television networks, Pskov Lane, Megafon. Pskov Seats, Wi-Fi and NetBinet brands. Rostelecom. Mobile operators. Minsk, Yota, Bilin, Rostelecom. Tele Russia brand. Development of cellular communication in Pskov began the Beta Telecom company working in NT-450 standard in 1996. The first mobile network operator in the market of Pskov and area working in the GAN's M900/1800 standard became Emets, the following Megafon, then Bilin and Tele Russia. 2009. Yota. 2015. Hotels. In Pskov over 20 hotels, the largest of them, Riga, October, Old Estate Hotel and Spa, Podsnoyev's Yard work now. Museums. In the city the joint project of the government of the Russian Federation and World Bank preserving and use of cultural heritage in Russia, which result will be a creation of museum quarter, a uniform zone of museum and tourist services implemented. In 2019 started accomplishment of complex repair and restoration works with restoration of initial shape on 3 historical objects. Pogankin Chambers, the building of the former Art and Industrial School of N.F. Fangdarflita and Tudomaki ends. The 17th century. Memorial Estate. The Pskov Memorial Estate opened in 1876 is one of the oldest in Russia. It incorporates 74 monuments of federal importance, from them 4 are recognized especially valuable objects of cultural heritage of the people of the Russian Federation. Besides, it branches among which only in Russia there are memorial estates of the composer Modest Mussorgsky and the first Russian female mathematician Sofia Kovalevskaya and also the composer Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov and the writer Margarita Yamshikova are a part of the museum. In July 2019 the giant Skovo-Izborsky Museum created based on Memorial Estate, Izborsk, where also the Pskov Memorial Estate entered was registered. Art Gallery of the Museum on Nekrasov Street. 7. The main entrance from Komsomolsky Lane. The structure of the Pskov State Joint Historical and Architectural and Art Museum includes departments branches. Art Gallery, the building of the former Art and Industrial School N.F. Fangdarflita. Nekrasov Street. 7. In funds of gallery there are Boris Grigoriev, Vasily Tropinin, Mark Chagall's works. Transfiguration Cathedral of the Mirezhsky Monastery. Krasnoarmeyskaya M. Monumental painting of the 12th century, well-known frescoes. Pogankin Chambers. Nekrasov Street. 7. Exposures. Painting of ancient Pskov of the 14th, 17th centuries, Russian art silver, National Applied Art, 1100 years Pskov in the history of Russia. Central building of the museum. Nekrasov Street. 7. Exposure, Pskov region in days of the Great Patriotic War. Mandative Chambers. Kremlin 4. 50. L. Massen's House. Komsomolsky Lane 6. Outdoor storage of fund collections. 5.1. Lenin's Museum Apartment. Lenin Street. 3. House Museums Park. Iskry Lane 5. Plekhanovsky Posad. Y. D. Spigolsky's Museum Apartment. Oktyarsky Avenue. 14. Apartment 74. Pskov Forge Yard. Komsomolsky Lane 7. Church of the Dormition of the Tietokos in the village of Molyotovo. Other museums. Railway Museum. Museum of the Novel, 2 Captains. Planetarium. House of Crafts. Center of Folk Art. Exhibition of archaeological finds in the Archaeological Center of the Pskov region. The Museum of Memory of Minor Prisoners of Fascist Concentration Camps, only among similar in the territory of the Pskov region, is open in 2014. Pskov Icon. In the Pskov iconography everything differs in independence, originality and originality. Beginning from a method of processing of a board and finishing structure of creation of faces, the Pskov artists ought not to be beyond the system accepted in the Pskov art. Almost all Pskov icons of the 14th century, the classical period in the history of the school, were written on the pine boards worked and fastened among themselves by means of such similar joiners' acceptances that it seems one skillful handicraftsman directed their production. Levkasny soil is also specific in the Pskov icons. They are applied on a wooden blank with dense beds. The surface of a levkas is not polished under glasses, for example, in the Suzdal samples, and differs in the rough, and even invoice. Levkashena of icons in ancient Pskov reminds the principle of a plastering of church constructions of the city, the plaster put freely and unevenly, molded by hands of the builders who were not caring for targeting of special luster. This similar method of processing of soil gives to appearance of the Pskov icon special simplicity and is by more picturesque the colorful planes. Thanks to such manual Levkashena the impression of a free post-roinost of an icon is reached. It is so illusory the high layer of soil as if now put by the icon painter looks. Theaters. Pskov Academic Drama Theater of A.S. Pushkin. Pskov Regional Puppet Theater. Pskov Regional Philharmonic Hall. Symphonic Orchestra of the Pskov Regional Philharmonic Hall. Recreation Centers. City Cultural Center. City Cultural Center. Branch. In the 1980th years, construction of the Palace of Pioneers was begun. The building was not completed, demolished in 2018. Movie theaters. Pobeda Movie Theater, Smena Movie Theater, Sinan's Mirage Movie Theater, Silver Cinema. Earlier, movie theaters, Cosmos, Mladoeshny, October were closed and completely converted. Libraries. Municipal Authority of Culture, the centralized library system of the city of Pskov. Local History Service Desk of a library system of the city of Pskov. Pskov Regional Universal Scientific Library. Temples of Pskov. The most remarkable part of architectural heritage of Pskov, the ancient church is whitewashed single-headed, with characteristic belfries. Sometimes separate, sometimes constructed on a temple slope. And krylets. These lines sharply distinguish them from other monuments of the Russian architecture of the time that gives the chance to speak about the Pskov architectural style. In the city there are churches of the 12th, 15th centuries. In the most part of Russia all buildings of this time were destroyed by Mongols and internal wars. Many churches of Pskov treated nowadays destroyed or abolished monasteries. The Cathedral of Pskov is Trinity Cathedral. Defensive constructions of Pskov. The Pskov defensive construction caused admiration in contemporaries, residents of the neighboring areas. One of old Russian writers wrote then, "The Oko in all Russia a Preslavushi great hail Pskov stone 4 walls is protected and a new hail Smolensk." The cities of ancient Russia willingly used services of the Pskov architects, charging them construction of the most responsible objects. Architects of Pskov up to the 17th century strictly observed the basic principles of local architectural school and used the Pskov construction skills checked by time, working in the distance from the hometown. The hand of the Pskov masters touched many large constructions built during an era of forming of the Russian national state. The main remained towers of the Pskov fortress. Vlasyevsky Tower, Dovmentova a tower, Smerdya, Rybnitsky Tower, a tower of Sacred Gate, Trotskaya Tower, Clock Tower, Average Tower, Kuterim's Tower, Nogolnaya, a round tower, Flat Tower of the lower lattices, High Tower of the lower lattices, Varlomsky Angular Tower, Volkovsky Tower, Death Tower, Dremyachaya Tower, Mikhailovsky Tower, Petrovsky Tower, Svinersky, Svinerskaya Tower, Pokrovsk Tower, Mstislavsky Tower. Ancient civil constructions of Pskov. The beginning of civil engineering in Pskov, judging by written sources, belongs to the early period of architectural history of the city. Throughout several centuries, residents of Pskov constructed palaces, residential chambers, storage facilities and other economic buildings. Up to now, time kept only an insignificant part of apartment houses of the 17th century. It is the independent section of the Pskov architecture. Each of the reached constructions tells about life of the medieval town not less than the most exact analytic code. The spirit of simplicity and truthfulness distinguishes also civil architecture of Pskov. N. Voronin wrote, Pskov civil buildings of the 17th century are private, different type stone houses of rich Pskov merchants and guests whose tastes with an extraordinary brightness were reflected in these constructions with their powerful wattled walls, huge cellars, small, barred iron windows which are hardly recovering white smooth surfaces of facades of the houses similar sometimes not so much on housing, how many on fortress. Voren N. Ak. Sak. Page 336-337. Civil constructions of ancient Pskov were very often reconstructed and therefore appear at us in strongly changed type. Pskov restorers, being engaged in restoration of initial shape of old residential constructions, try to be the most reliable in the work. Before approving a final version of reconstruction of a monument, specialists carefully study historical documents, do the most exact measurements, carry out detailed comparative analysis. Complexes of residential constructions of medieval Pskov, thanks to efforts of restorers, take the worthy place in an architectural memorial of the city. Mandative chambers. Government's town. Kremlin 4. Nowadays one of buildings of the Pskov Historical and Art and Architectural Memorial Estate. Pogankin Chambers. Roundabout City. Nekrasov Street. 7. Nowadays one of additions of the Pskov Historical and Art and Architectural Memorial Estate. Podznoyev Chambers. Roundabout City. Nekrasov Street. 3/5. Menshikov Chambers. Roundabout City. Sovetskaya Street. 50. Solodeshnya. Roundabout City. Gogol Street. 42. Pachenko's House. Roundabout City. Gogol Street. 43. Ruzanov Chambers. Roundabout City. Yamsky's Chambers. Roundabout City. Lakarev's Chambers. Street. I've read Gorillas 10. Chambers in Wolf Holes, Sernikov Chambers. Zapskovi. Trubinsky Chambers. Zapskovi. Leon Pozyomsky. Zvanets. Street. 22. Chambers Postnikov. Bike. Zapskovi. Hashevy Street. 2. House of the Priest, Komsomolsky Lane, 7. House of the Merchant Batov, Risky Avenue 2. In honor of the tercentenary of defense of 1581. 1897. Kislinsky A.M. Obelisk in the Square of the Fallen Fighters. 1928. To 5.1. Lenin at the House of Soviets from Nekrasov Street. 1945. Sks. Nanaizer M.G. 2SM. Kirov at the House of Soviets from Oktyarsky Avenue. 1946. Sks. Nanaiser M.G. Unstandard model. The first monument to Kirov opened in 1937 and exported by Germans on melting in 1942 was works. And 5. Tomsky. To 5.1. Lenin at Lenin Square. 1960. Vlachimir's Ark. Butenko. Monument in honor of the first victories of the Red Army in Crosses. 1969. Eternal Flame at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier on Pobedy Square. 1974. Smirnov 5. B. Kataev 50. N. Vasilkovsky 5. 0. Butenko. Memorial Tank on the Square at 50 Latia October. 1974. Bridge. Tule S. Pushkin and Irina Rodionovna, Pushkin and the Peasant. 1983. Sks. Komavo K. Ark. Konstantinov. Bust of the academician I. K. Kikoin in the square between houses No. 38 and 40 on Oktyarsky Avenue. 1988. Sks. Kerbal 50. E. Ark. Ivanov 1. 50. To Alexander Nevsky on the Mount Sokolika. 1993. Sks. Kozlovsky 1. Ark. Butenko. 2 captains. Caverns Heroes. At Halsno. 7 on Oktyarsky Avenue. 1995. Sks. Velav M. Ananive. Bust of Kutuzova M. 1. In Kutuzovkan Square. 1997. Sks. Shuvalov 5. To paratroopers of the 6th Company of the 104th Guards Regiment of the 76th Division of Airborne Forces. 2002. To the Princess Olga on Risky Avenue. 2003. Sks. Sariteli Z. K. To the Princess Olga on Oktyabrskaya Square. 2003. Sks. Plykov 5. M. Steel, the City of Military Glory, on Pobedy Square. 2010. To Heroes of World War I in Privokalny Square. It is open on August 22, 2014. Sks. Sherbakov S.A. Ark. Kozlovsky B. Memorial bust to the hero of the Soviet Union S.G. Baykov on crossing of streets Western and Baykova. It is open on July 24, 2015. To soldiers of World War I at House No. 4 on Georgievskaya Street. It is open on August 6, 2015. Pskov. Almanac. Monument to intelligence agents of all generations in the territory of a body 64044. It is open in October 2015. Monument to the bus toiler on Leon Pozemsky Street, 119. It is open in October 2017. Monument to defenders of frontier on crossing of Truda Street and so forth. Enthusiasts. It is open on May 28, 2019. Monument to Sava Yamshikov at the Pokrovsk Tower. It is open on October 8, 2020. UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Monuments of ancient Pskov were candidates for inclusion in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List several times, beginning since 2002. At first the nomination was called Great Pskov. It included a large number of monuments not only in Pskov, but also in Izborsk and Vybutak. The application. Only 18 objects. Submitted in 2015 was rejected at the regular meeting of UNESCO in May 2016 because of incompleteness of documentation. The last application for entering of Pskov into the World Heritage List prepared with the name of the Monuments of Ancient Pskov nomination. Within preparation for the nomination of 18 Pskov monuments of the 12th, 17th centuries were carried to especially valuable objects of cultural heritage of Russia. Here carried a complex of fortifications of the roundabout city, Pokrovsk and Kremlchaya of a tower, ensemble of the Kremlin, Mandative Chambers, Cathedral of Street, John the Baptist of Ivanovsky Monastery, ensemble of the Spasomirsky Monastery, ensemble of the Snetigorsky Monastery, Archangel Michael Church with the bell tower, Church of the Cover from the Breach, Kozma and Damian's Church with Premostia, Georgie's Church from the Vs, Church of the Epiphany with a belfry, Church of the Assumption with Paramenia with a belfry, Nicola's Church with Yusoki. Church of Saints Peter and Paul from the Buoy, Church Old Rise, Vasily's Church on the Hill, Pogankin Chambers. On July 7, 2019, according to the decision of the 43rd session of Committee of the World Heritage of UNESCO, of 10 of 18 nominated monuments are included in the UNESCO World Cultural Heritage List. All of them Tree Church Architectural School and are the most ancient monuments of architecture. 10 churches of the Pskov School of Architecture are included. Cathedral of Street, John the Baptist of Ivanovsky Monastery, ensemble of the Spasomirsky Monastery. Transfiguration Cathedral, ensemble of the Snetigorsky Monastery. Cathedral of the Nativity of the Virgin, Archangel Michael Church with the bell tower, Church of the Cover from the Breach, Kozma and Damian's Church with Premostia with a bell tower remaining balance, gate and a fencing, Georgie's Church from the Vs, Church of the Epiphany with a belfry, Nicola's Church with Yusoki and Vasily's Church on the Hill. Higher educational institutions. Building of the Pskov State University. Pskov State University, Pskov State Polytechnical Institute, Pskov State Pedagogical University of SM. Kirov. The Pskov Free Institute is closed. Branch of Sin of Russia Academy, branch of the Russian International Academy of Tourism. Riot. Branch of the Modern Humanitarian Academy. My. Branch of St. Petersburg State University of Economics and Finance. Branch Booz. Branch of the Moscow Open Social Academy. MOSA. Branch of Northwest Institute of Management of Aeronepa. Branch G. Inzakan. Pskov branch of the Street. Petersburg University of Management and Economy. It is closed since July 1, 2012. On December 27, 2010, the Russian Prime Minister V. Putin signed the order No. 2440-R. About creation of the Pskov State University and charged to the Ministry of Education of the Russian Federation to perform all necessary actions connected with reorganization together with Rosamoshisto. Were a part of new federal public educational institution of higher professional training. Pskov State Pedagogical University of SM. Kirov Pskov State Polytechnical Institute, Pskov Industrial Technical School, Pskov College of Construction and Economy and Veliki Luki Construction College. The purposes of activity of the new university, training of qualified specialists in educational programs of the higher, postgraduate, secondary, primary, additional professional education and skilled workers according to programs of professional training and also conducting scientific activity. Average special educational institutions. Pskov State University College. Pskov Regional College of Arts of N.A. Rimsky-Korsakov. Pskov Medical College. Pskov Cooperative Technical School. Pskov Agrotechnical College. Pskov College of Professional Technologies and Service. Teams. Pskov Amateur Football Club. Earlier. Till 2020. At the level of the teams of masters, the city was represented by Pskov-747 and Pskov-2000, which was called also Pskov and Mechanician. In 1970, Electron. Above the last professional level never rose. In 1999, Pskov became the champion of Russia among fans. Sporting events. Cup of the Pskov region on Kudo. Championship of the Pskov region in Sambo. Kettlebell Sport Championship of the Pskov region. Ice Hockey Championship of the Pskov region. Night Hockey League. The Championship of Russia 1 League, the Zone Northwest on volleyball among men's and women's teams. The traditional Pskov sailing regatta, which is carried out since 2004. Stadiums. The ice arena on the outskirts of Pskov. In the village Borisovichi. Mechanician. Locomotive. In 2005-2020, the Sports Center 747 was called the home arena with an artificial covering. Electron is not used. Hippodrome. Sporting venues. The House of Sport Leopard. The pool. Gyms for volleyball and basketball. Sports Tennis Center of the Pskov Regional Public Organization. Sosenka Skiing Lodge in Koritovo. Ski slope of the center of winter holidays, snowfall. Water skiing base, Dynamo. Rowing base. Sorsip. Specialized School of the Olympic Reserve for Children and Young People. Onroing Ninike. Pool and Fitness Studio Wellness of Club Oasis. Pool, University Student. Pskov Sports Club of Extralight. Aircraft Sky is located in airfield of Syriac. Aquapolis Shopping Mall with Aquapark. Healthcare. Hospitals. Pskov Regional Clinical Hospital. Pskov City Hospital. Pskov Regional Children's Hospital. Pskov City Children's Hospital. Military Regional Hospital. Regional Hospital of Veterans of War. Central District Hospital. Medical and sanitary part of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Russian Federation. Infectious Diseases Hospital. Tubercular Clinic. Oncological Clinic. Skin and Venereologic Clinic. Narcological Clinic. Pskov Perinatal Center. Polyclinics. City Polyclinic No. 1. City Polyclinic No. 2. City Polyclinic No. 3. City Children's Polyclinic No. 1. City Children's Polyclinic No. 2. City Children's Polyclinic No. 2. Branch. Regional Children's Polyclinic. District Clinic. City Dental Polyclinic. Regional Dental Polyclinic. Cemeteries. Alexevskoye. Theological. Iona Boguslavsky. Butersko. Tatrievsky Cemetery. Memorial. Brotherly Military. Mironositsky Cemetery. Orlitsovsky. Peter and Paul on the riverbank Great. Krestovsky Cemetery. The closed and destroyed cemeteries. Lutheran. German. Nikitsky. The Jewish. The city is a member of the Hanseatic Union of Modern Times. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.